We came to Cambodia 7 years ago with a desire for the Khmer people of Cambodia to know the God of the Bible. Our life had been radically changed at age 35 when we were searching for the meaning of life and found it in the gospel message of Jesus Christ. We had found peace and joy and wanted the Khmer people of Cambodia to know where to find it too. Cambodia is still suffering from a devastating war in the 70s when Pol Pot exterminated 2 to 3 million of his own people. According to the United Nations Human Poverty Index, Cambodia ranks at a low 73 out of 78 developing countries. 50% of children under 5 suffer from malnutrition. Although we knew of their plight, our goal was to help them spiritually. We assumed the other humanitarian organizations would take care of their physical needs, but God had other plans for us. As we began making relationships in a poor neighborhood in the city of Phnom Penh, our hearts began to become torn for them. Once we looked around, we saw the difficulties that the Cambodian people face. We've seen poverty before in America, but once we saw poverty here in Cambodia, it didn't even compare. And our hearts were just broken for the Cambodian people. Children that had dropped out of school, didn't even know how to read and write, didn't even know how to say their own alphabet. And we saw people with toothaches and cancer and just waiting to the very last second to go to the hospital, and it was too late for them. We actually saw 2 people pass away because of a situation like that. There's no government assistance for the poor in Cambodia. Doctors will not do anything until they know someone will pay for it. We have ministered to people who have lost their homes because the government burned down the area or came in and tore it down, sending them to live in tents made of plastic. People's houses flooding and just not even be able to live in it appropriately. At nighttime when they're sleeping, they're just flooded out, and just the condition of the wood in their houses with the bugs and the rotted wood, and just the situation is just deplorable. These were people we were reaching spiritually through Bible studies and church. They were now our friends, and some became like family. We could not watch them suffer needlessly anymore. We soon came to realize that there were not enough humanitarian organizations to help. We also believe God began to speak to our hearts and show us His love for the poor through many passages in the Bible. He asked the Israelites in the Old Testament to keep the edges of their gardens for the poor. And in Psalms, God asks us not to charge interest for loans to the poor. In Proverbs 14, He compares kindness to the poor the same as honor to God. As our hearts became in tune with how God felt for the poor, we knew that we could no longer overlook their physical needs while ministering to them spiritually.
One of the ways that we realized that God was calling us to meet physical needs along with spiritual needs was when we began praying for $10,000, because we realized that the homes of the little shacks that our friends lived in and that we were ministering to were flooding. And we realized that if we were going to help pay for all of their little shacks to raise the floors in them, that it was going to cost about $10,000. So we prayed, and within 2 weeks, a woman wrote to us that was wanting to help us and didn't know how, but she said, "I have $10,000 that I want to give you." So we were just blown away. We realized that that's what God was calling us to do, to begin to meet physical needs along with spiritual needs too.
In the 7 years we have been here, we have needed to cry out to God over and over for various needs as our project account would get low. Each and every time we cried out, we were blessed in some way by someone who wanted to help. We are amazed what God has done since that first answered prayer for flooded homes. We now have supporters for 35 children, teens and young adults to go to school. We have started a dormitory for poor college students. We have begun a van business and sewing business to help poor Christian leaders and pastors. Above the business, there is housing for sweatshop workers that we offer at low cost. Over 500,000 teen girls and young women come into the city to work in garment factories or sweatshops. They go to and from work in overcrowded trucks with standing room only. Their salary is a poverty-level income. Many of these girls are lured into the vast sex trade industry because of the offer of higher pay. Young Khmer women will often sacrifice everything so that their younger siblings can go to school or to pay off family debt. Often, Cambodia teen girls are sold or pressured into the sex trade industry by parents or family members. The teens will often do what they think they must do to bring income to their needy families. As a help to these factory workers' salaries, we now have 8 rooms that we offer at a very low cost. And we encourage them to join us for Bible study and other events with the hope that they will gain spiritual knowledge and not be lured into a life that they were not meant for. In the same area as the sewing factory, we have built another facility which houses our pastor and his family. They have begun reaching out to the factory workers by having them over to make crafts and other events. They are also reaching out to poor children and teens through teaching them English. English is greatly needed for a better paying job in Cambodia, and every parent wants their child to study English from little up. Our dormitory students also go out once a week to teach Bible. There is no local church, and we hope to use this facility eventually as a church. So God has done much more than we could ask or imagine to help both the physical and spiritual needs of the Cambodian people. Wichika is one of our sponsored students presently living with us in the dorm. Her life was looking like she would end up as a factory worker or karaoke nightclub worker. Because of a lack of money, she had stopped going to school in 7th grade, which is the average schooling a sweatshop worker receives. We met her 2 years after she had quit school and were able to find her a sponsor and readmit her into a good Christian school. She's placed 1st, 2nd, and 3rd in her class this past year. She has just finished 12th grade and is planning on going to college. Her younger sister, Srey Liep, on the other hand, did not make it out of the typical life of a poor girl. At 18 years old, her parents have encouraged her to work in a karaoke bar to help the family. These bars hire teens and young women to sit out front dressed in revealing attire so that men can choose one of them to accompany them for the evening. At the same time we help Wichika re-enter school, we tried to help her sister and another young girl too. Srey Liep, Wichika's sister, was 14 and put into 2nd grade at the same Christian school as Wichika. The 2nd graders could read better than her, and she towered over them. She only lasted a year and then left. Wichika now knows the Lord in her heart and has a desire for others to know God too. Besides Christian school, our project fund through World Team has helped her, and many others receive teacher training through Child Evangelism Fellowship and Bible training at the Phnom Penh Bible School. Our dormitory students meet 3 times a week for Bible training and practice teaching the Bible. Until recently, Wichika was traveling weekly on a small motorcycle in monsoon rains at times to a village 1.5 hours away to teach children and youth about Jesus. She now travels weekly with a group of our dormitory students to teach the Bible to the sewers at our small sewing factory business. Because of young people like Wichika's sister and factory workers, the Khmer pastor whom we work closely with on these projects has a vision to begin a community training center for teens, young adults who have not made it through school. We are currently looking at land and a building project for the center. We've seen God work really powerfully in the past, and our expectation is that God is going to work equally as powerful in the future. And we realize that this is a huge task that we're undertaking to build this community center, but we're confident that God is in it and that He's going to work out His perfect will in this situation. And we're just really excited that people back home have the opportunity to be praying for us, and we're going to need a team throughout this whole process and even after the building is built. If you would like to hear more about our ministry or help sponsor children, teens, or young adults, or would like to donate toward our community training center, please contact us at greg.drebus@worldteam.org.